Okay, hey everyone. Um, Today is November 27th, so that's a JupyterLab weekly call. And my name is Andriy Yaroshenko. Hey everyone. I wanted to introduce our new team member, Michael Chin. He's on the call today. He's a new member in our AWS team, so he will be working on the projects that we are working, um, maybe on Jupyter as well. So I kind of wanted to maybe introduce myself, and if other people, if anyone would like to also say a couple of words about themselves to kind of introduce themselves to Michael, that would be awesome. If you guys don't want to do that, that's fine too. So yeah, my name is Andriy Yaroshenko. I work in AWS in Brian Granger's team. I've been working in and around Jupyter since 2021. I started working as an intern in Cal Poly, and since then moved to AWS. So I mostly work on Jupyter Scheduler at the moment, which is a JupyterLab extension for running notebooks now or on schedule. So yeah, thank you. If anyone else would like to introduce themselves, that would be awesome. I would appreciate that a lot.
I will go. So I'm Mike. I'm with QuantSight, not to be confused with QuantStack. So we have two similarly named companies who are contributing regularly to Jupyter. So I am the one without the T uh, in the beginning. My background is in bioinformatics and kind of analysis of large data sets, but for a while now I've been working on JupyterLab and contributing, maintaining, helping with stuff. And yeah, nice to see new faces and any questions, just let me know. I know that it's not a big crowd today, but later I will talk about some of the PRs that I have up for review. Anyone else wanted to introduce themselves?
Michael, oh, Nick, awesome. Let's go.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nick. I work at Georgia Tech. Uh, I've been doing Jupyter stuff for a very long time now. At this point, not founder links, but certainly back in the bad old Berkeley days. Um, I interact with a bunch of other teams outside of the front ends team, and I do a lot of packaging on Condaforge and other things that make it easier for folks to install Jupyter, extend Jupyter, those kinds of things at whatever level of the stack. I don't do much Jupyter Hub, so don't ask me about Kubernetes.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Michael, would you like to kind of say a couple of words about yourself?
Yes, thanks, Andre. So I joined AWS back in 2021. I've been working here for about 3.5 years in Amazon Neptune, which is AWS's graph database offering. And over that time, I've mainly been responsible for developing graph magic extensions and widget extensions for making it easier to work with graph databases. We maintain an open source package named Graph Notebook and another one named Graph Explorer, which works through Jupyter Server Proxy. And yeah, I joined Brian's team last week, and we'll be working with Andre and Jason on improving Jupyter. Thanks. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Well, if no one else would like to talk, we can start on the agenda. And I see that Mike is the first and only person on the agenda. So, Mike, if you would like to take a word, please do.
Yeah, so it's a small meeting this week. Uh, and because of the holiday season, it's also not very many active reviewers. So I would like to bring attention to a couple of pull requests. The first one, 16999, that should be very easy to approve. It's basically pinning version of Python. So because our actions in maintainer tools repo get a release, which upgraded the new version, the Python version, to 3.12. It seems that there is a problem with the tests for the copy and paste with the debugger. And the problem is limited to the cleanup stage of the test. So actually the test itself passes, but there is some kind of a timeout. And while we should likely fix that, because it's blocking the CI and the CI is not green for that reason, I think it's fine to pin it for now and try to fix it later. And it's most likely not even a bug on our side because we don't have very much logic there. It's everything is upstream. The quest will be to figure out where to report a bug or find an existing bug in debug.py or IPyKernel implementation. Now let me rearrange that actually. The next on the list of priority, I would say, is if someone could have a quick look on a very round number, 17,000, pull request 17,000. This one fixes disappearing cells, and this is a critical regression in JupyterLab 4.31 that was reported on both JupyterLab and Notebook repositories. And it popped up when we fixed the windowing scroll bar height estimation, because there was some side effects in a getter, which is used to determine the range of cells to render. This getter was basically breaking the assumptions and behaving incorrectly. So I missed that, unfortunately, in my pull request, which was fixing the estimation of the size, and that introduced pretty severe error. And that should fix it. I hope that the review will be easier once community members who have been nicely asking for confirming whether the fix works, even though I myself think it does work. Once they provide comments in the issues, but yeah, respectively, because I know that like the usual folks who help to go through the PRs and approve might be out this week. So I don't know, Andrew, Rosio, if you had a little time to approve that, like skim the code, test it on Binder and see whether that kind of works. That would be great so that we can push this update out. And a related question was about whether we should yank 4.3 from PyPy and Conda Forge.
I mean, quick bit of feedback. So I'm seeing changes for a critical bug without a test.
Yes, because it's pretty difficult to test it. And by pretty difficult is I spent like 5 hours trying to add a test there. That's not gonna happen. Sorry. My previous pull request had a test. So the failure sequence is pretty complex. I can spend some more time, but I doubt that within a reasonable time a test will be added there.
I was going to share, I will try this out on Binder as well. I tried it out locally. I pulled the PR and installed, and when I was running it, it was weird because at first, none of the cells, well, in the first scenario, I'm not sure if I'm replicating it correctly, but in the first scenario, none of the cells disappear, but I still see an error on my console that says what does it say? It says something along like offset size, incorrect offset size. And then I have a notebook where I just have a lot of for loops that I ran just to try to see if I could replicate this in full mode, windowed mode. And only when I copy and insert above a certain cell do I actually see disappearing cells below.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the issue, and the console
Okay.
log that you mentioned is the problematic thing. Now the question is, if you run with these changes in this pull request and ensure that you are running using the dev compiled version, whether this still appears.
Yeah. I want to run it, I guess, one more time because I did it before, just shortly before this call. So I compiled, I pip installed, I ran JLPM install build, and I ran JupyterLab in dev mode, and I did see a disappearing cell only with that second cell that when I.
Okay.
Mhm,
Can you possibly record a video of that and
mhm.
steps to reproduce, because that would be very helpful to
Sure. Yeah.
investigate further. Okay.
Thank you.
Mike, have you seen the 1700 has a integration test or error UI test with
Yes,
logic?
that's what the previous pull request is about. This one is fixing it.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I see. It's like it's not coming from this particular pair. Thank you.
Yeah, like last week I've been basically fixing CI, and that was check release was failing, and then another test was failing. It's like, yeah, whack-a-mole, trying to keep up with failures because of different dependencies.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, this is why we have a standard development environment and locally executable task runs. I mean, like all these things where you can't actually debug them locally, it won't get better, you know?
Yeah, that's hard for sure.
Like, you know, we got 3 task runners basically already in there. You know, npm does a little bit of stuff, yarn does a little bit of stuff. The NX Lerna thing, which I don't even know what it does anymore if you don't use their hosted platform. It just takes up lots of disk space. And then we've got maintainer tools that don't run locally. Like, I don't know anybody that actually runs them locally. And then the crazy pants stuff to actually ship a release that requires 5 computers running and fake npm packet. You know, like it's not going to get better as we keep outsourcing the knowledge needed to build a release with one step.
Yeah, I agree that a better approach was and is like the tests which are implemented using a bash script which can be executed reliably, and all the GitHub action does is runs this script which you can run locally as well. But yeah, it's the other parts of the CI are what they are, and until we get until someone has bandwidth to rework all of that, we are kind of stuck with maintaining that.
I mean, if I throw it out there, a Pixie tunnel, right? Doesn't even have to be in JupyterLab. It could be outside of JupyterLab that built the thing, right? And then we just go back in later and remove all the CWDs. Okay, so now you'd have a Pixie tunnel and a Pixie lock. that knew how to run all of the things and they knew how to run them in the right order. And someone could say, I want to change these 5 lines of TypeScript and then I want a new wheel. Would people bitch and complain about, oh no, I don't want to use Conda, right? Like that's where it stops, because if we have to support people on Brew and we have to support people on raw, operating system package manager versions of things, and all these things that we know after years, decades, whatever, however much we add it up and do here, don't actually help an open source project get further. It's like, I can help you if you're on OneDrive, maybe. I don't have OneDrive. I'm not running a Windows ARM64. Like I can't, there's no way to reason about those things. And we don't actually support them anyway, right? Like you drop into, how things are running inside there. If you're on Windows and you are not running inside a Git bash or something like that, you don't have anything that'll run .sh files. So I think we need an actual serious, frank discussion about what are the goals of onboarding someone. That's got to be day one. Like, can you successfully build a wheel of JupyterLab locally? May not, like, there might be lies in the shipped yarn lock or something like that. But can you build a shippable product by running maximally 1 or 2 setup steps that fit in a copy paste buffer and then 1 script? And that's what you need to know. And use that as a way to get to it.
That, like, this works. The complexity of the release interaction is that it setups an npm server, setups PyPy server, and tests whether these wheels will actually be uploaded, for example. And I know you might not like how it works, that you can build the wheel locally, because the wheel built locally will be built using Hatch, and that's a different kind of forms. But I believe that it already works this way.
I don't know, man. Like, I feel like check releaser breaks half the stuff half the time. Like, I feel like magically relying on something that you don't control to upgrade versions deep inside of something that you can't actually touch and see is nightmarish. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So if I put a Pixie thing out there, it would be a non-trivial amount of effort for that to be a good description of the project, right? Like, it'd probably take some profiling to figure out what does this, if you run that, like, I'm seeing build all now. So build all is a thing, right? So we've got meta package, and then we got build all, and then we got build pre-build all and post build all, and like 60 different build all things. Because those live in package.json, which doesn't permit comments, that developer intent is not, it's not possible to tell what is actually going on. And there's no coverage of package.json, so we don't even know how many of those tasks are actually used on a day-to-day basis. And then you get over to the CI stuff that no one has seen. So, like, running servers, that's fine. We can run servers. We know how to run. We're building a server. Like, that's not the thing. It's just if there is no will that's based on singular principles to get to some desired state of how we build things, then we're not going to be able to climb out of this. On PRs that I would do, like, first thing I'd always do is get Binder running. Well, Binder doesn't work anymore. Like, Binder's not reliable as a development tool to support our stuff. And maybe we could get special cased in there, some nonsense like that, but then that would get abused. We don't really have bandwidth for that. So I'm in that same old spot. We need something that is like make, that you run one thing and you get the thing. And I'm not like the fact, so the reason that you need real wheel, let's see, the reason that you need real NPM stuff is because of the staging yarn lock. Is that correct? Like that's the only thing that contains, yo, there's hashes on the internet that require this thing to run, to my knowledge. And that only exists anymore for like diagnostic purposes and for JupyterLab build, which we want to deprecate or move to an entirely separate tool. Is that, like, from an entropy standpoint, what is preventing us from having local wheels? You know, what is preventing us from having wheels, built wheels at the beginning of CI, and then everything else tests the wheel? It doesn't test anything else, right? Like, you know, if our main unit of distribution is the wheel, can we build that wheel and use that everywhere else? And I know, you know, clearly there's stuff in the TypeScript domain and the Puppeteer, Playwright, whatever, Cypress, whatever Galata is even running on today. You know, there's stuff over there, and that all lives on the TypeScript domain, and that's fine. And we could be caching node modules and not waiting around for 5 minutes every time that we, you know, restore those all the time, you know. But I can't even look at CI anymore. Like, I don't even know when something fails. I don't even know where it is. I don't know what it depends on. There's so many actions in there that I don't even know what they are, you know. And so as long as that gets more complex, I don't see how we're going to find people that are able to fix it. And if you stop fixing it, then who's going to fix it? You know, if I stop fixing Binder, who's going to care about Binder? Nobody cares about Binder anymore, right? So
Yeah. So like, what are the concrete steps? Because I know that you'd like to have something like do it, make, to simplify, to have like one step build.
yeah.
On the other hand, Steve was working basically on that, and he was just using Hatch. So I think that there is like a larger story there.
Hatch can't install Python. I mean, yeah, okay, it can kind of install Python, but it doesn't have lock files. So there's no way to track when your unpinned dependency breaks something, which is exactly what's happening on maintainer tools, right? Like, there was a version of Python that we were just accepting, we were fiating whatever, upstream wisdom, and it's not working. So I don't think Hatch is the right locus because it is not actually work reducing. Hatch does all the work every time. So if I'm in some TF, like, so I was looking at TypeDoc, right? And like TypeDoc kind of still works. You know, it's not going to work with O27 because TypeScript hates us. Actually, it's a Microsoft package that broke, which is funny to me. It shouldn't be, but it is. So, you know, I change a line in TypeScript and I want to see the new docs next to it, right? Like, there should be a known amount of, there should be a predictable amount of work, a calculable, a data-driven amount of work that is done to get there that does not require rebuilding everything. Because like TypeDoc takes, oh, damn it, my computer crashed, so I don't know. But like, that's like a 6-minute build or something like that. You know, like it takes a very long time to get some of those artifacts out. You know, running repo integrity takes a minute or two, you know, and like almost everything, or is that even gone? I don't know. Like, I drop into package JSON and there's no context to anything as to why things work the way that they work today. And that's the challenge. It makes it hard to contribute. So yes, if we did have a single shot that lived outside of Python, or had an outer, you've got a bootstrap environment that's like, hey, yo, this is our standard libPython. I don't care if you want to try and build it on 3.13 threadless. We don't care. We don't care yet. We don't care. You can't run JupyterLab there, so we're not going to try and support building there. We can't support WinArm64 yet because the wheels aren't there. Well, like whatever. But like putting a line in the sand of this is what you need in order to start development, and not make you have to rebuild the universe if you want to test it on your oldest supported version of Python, for example. Does everything need to run on the oldest supported version of Python? No, it just has to work at runtime, right? We don't have to write scripts that are compatible with Python 3.6 or something, like we can be reasonable about those things if we actually pin what we're actually talking about. If we weren't, think about this, if we weren't pinning in, if package.json did not yield yarn lock, we would have nothing. On a day-to-day basis, we would not be able to build what's going on there, right? So being able to hoist that to not the versions of junk on NPM are, what is it? How big is node modules today? Let's take a look. I didn't even install everything, right? Like I was trying to get TypeDoc working and they're not even there. NCDU node modules. Oh, she's a-going. That's wrong. It's only 839 megabytes. Holy crap, did we get rid of some stuff? Oh, maybe it didn't install the Galata stuff because I was just trying to get to doc. No, some of it's in there. Well, anyhow, point is, right, like, because we have a lock file for that, we know what's in there, right? We know if you rebuild this on another machine, modulo crazy canvas binaries that it rebuilds with JIP and Python 2.7 or whatever the hell that is, we know we're going to get. We can't make that same claim for the development environment. And as long as that's the case, we can't. If there's never going to be any parity between what's on my machine, what's on Mike's machine, and what's on CI, we can't make these things work better. And Docker's not the answer. Just tell you right now. If you want to do Docker, you build your system so that it works locally on one machine and then runs in a Docker machine and whatever, and we can put that in dev container. But that is not a replacement for knowing what's in our, knowing and being able to see what changes over time. Like looking at yarn lock, you can look at that over time. Like we can, except when we change yarn versions that change how the lock file works. We know what changed. So, yes, at the end of the day, we got to be able to run our tests against Python. We need to be able to run those against a wheel that does not include tests, right? The tests, if you put your tests inside your wheel, then you can't fix your wheel, that kind of thing. My node is 750. It's a lot. That's not even a lot. What? You set up create React app and that's 2 gigabytes, like it's not even that much. It's not 750 is not even that bad.
I mean, relatively to a couple of megabytes.
A couple of megabytes of what? What are you building with a couple of megabytes?
I don't know. I'm comparing, for example, to the Jupyter Scheduler extension, and for sure it's like totally different thing, right? But that's huh?
Do you test it?
Sorry, what?
Do you test your Jupyter Scheduler?
Oh yeah. Yep.
What with?
Could you repeat that, Nick?
Okay. My point is simply, your environment as a downstream is simpler because the environment upstream is more complicated.
Yeah, for sure, and it depends on JupyterLab. as well. So yeah.
But not all of the things that JupyterLab also depends on, right?
Yeah.
So are you building TypeDoc? Are you running all the linters? Are you automating the creation of all the package metadata? Are you publishing new Webpack plugins? I don't think there's really can be an argument that, yeah, 2.4 is not weird. It's not weird at all. Don't even like, I don't even blink anymore. But I also don't think that a global cache somewhere on my home, somewhere in my home drive that is nowhere near my node modules or doesn't have node modules because it's magic is also the answer, right? Because if there's no way to get to the source file of what's broken because it's in a magic bundle, like then that doesn't help us understand what the problem is either. So I would love to dunk on Node.js all day. That'd be great, but we can't change that right now. We can't dump to Dino. We can't dump to Bun or something that is, made of fairy dust and whatever. So it's really just systematizing what we do in a way that is reactive to changes that developers need. So I guess that's the thing I posit. Like, what is important to the development process? What should be guiding the development process? And we can't answer that because there's only 5 of us here, but and what are we willing to sacrifice? What is the engineering, not societal? I don't want like social junk weighing in on here. What are we willing to sacrifice at a technical level to achieve that goal? So, like how far outside the box of what existing tools are willing to give us are we willing to go? We had some, I think we had a TypeDoc theme for a while. That was cool. It's kind of branded and all that, but that kept changing. So we had to give up that theme. And so now we just use a stock theme. Is anybody worse off? Does anyone get a worse developer experience, a worse documentation experience because we use the stock TypeDoc theme? No, So it's like, that was a good trade to make because it just stopped building when we upgraded to a version of TypeScript and then TypeDoc. I don't know how, if we don't have a sensible state of development the real problem comes in when people want to do I want to do a full-on custom build of JupyterLab with my extension built into core so that it's super optimized. That's cool, I guess. We ship Builder in there, so there's no particular reason that they don't make that a Python package that is installed via normal means, but people still want it. Is that a thing we're willing to sacrifice? The extensions in core, whatever that flag is for the build.
Okay, Nick, can you rewind a little bit and remind me, why is Python minus M build not a solution?
I guess I need that rephrased a little bit. Why is Python what?
So if you clone JupyterLab and run Python -m build, this will create a wheel. This will run JLPM, and of course, like there are problems there, but which we are solving by moving the builder to another repo. So setting this aside, the problem that we are shipping that with JupyterLab currently, running Python -m build will create a wheel for you. Is there something because you are saying that you should be able to get a wheel, so you can get a wheel this way. Is that what you mean, or?
Oh, I don't know who said it, maybe it was UV, but you know, if a feature is not tested, then it doesn't exist. And if a feature is not documented, then it doesn't exist. So if you want to ship a new feature, that means there's tests, and it means that there's documentation for it. So a distribution of JupyterLab is actually it's the wheel. It's all the no yarn tarballs. It's all the npm tarballs. It's the documentation website. It's the static analysis reports. You know, when I say distribute, I mean like, could I run something locally and say, yeah, we're ready to call this 4.3.1. And instead, what we're seeing is in CI, 50 different things are
Okay,
happening.
So you are saying all the artifacts that we would attach to a release, because we do that. We attach like 100 artifacts. Half of those, more than half of those, are the npm wheels.
Clear.
Some that checksums. There's no such a thing as npm wheels, npm tarbles. Okay, so that should all be easily produced locally. And it can be produced locally using the releaser, which I agree, most people don't use it like this. But then, like, what you are proposing is not a very different approach, but an approach in which the implementation is different.
The implementation is different because, in addition to that, you would also know, what did I build this with? What is the precise environment that I built from this? I would actually maintain that you probably want, you know, so the classic one in this space is poetry. Good Lord, let's not use poetry. Okay. So they just ignore PEPs and go off and do whatever they want to do. And their lock files don't accurately capture what you'd get between, if we have time, I'd love to better understand what is the role of type doc and what is our part of document. Sure, love top docs. That's great. My point is, if you see a failure on CI, you can reproduce the failure locally. And so that means down to the individual package level that's used inside of there, you know, how do you get to that? How do you get to that point? So yes, it is quote unquote just a different tool, but it's a tool that is more like Tox. Tox would be an option, except again, it doesn't lock anything down. And I'm not saying that you never test against all the latest stuff, right? Like, you have a leg of that thing where you just go do a hot pip install of the wheel that you built in your highly controlled environment. Pip install, let's go, you know, like, just pull whatever we said in our range for this thing. That's great. That is absolutely being able to run those tests there. You know, that is 100% worth continuing to investigate. But the rest of the environment, right? Where did you get Node? How did you get Node? Did you use NVM? Did you use Brew? Did you use whatever Microsoft has? Did you use Docker? You know, all of those questions make it very hard to reason about when something fails. So, to my feeling, a given CI job, well, one, we should be able to calculate the entire matrix of CI from stuff on disk. You know, look at package.json, look at PyProject TOML, look at whatever this thing is, which is why I would not recommend make, because one does not parse make, and determine. I mean, like Bazel, you know, Bazel takes this to the like next level, right? So you've got a distributed cache. It's what NX wishes it was, you know, and you've got to start speaking Skylark and all that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, dog, that's what you'd really want. You'd want a Jupyter level, now Linux Foundation level Bazel server that, given these inputs, you will get these outputs. but we are so far from being able to say what those inputs are to determine whether the thing that we get out is the thing that we want. Because at the end of the day, you'd want a reproducible wheel. And I don't even know if Hatch will do that. You know, you'd want to get out bit for bit exactly the same build, probably on any platform, which is terrifying and probably too hard to do because Windows. So yeah, I'm set. My point, and then you get timestamps and things like your documentation and stuff like that. So there's, you know, there's things you got to control for. But I think that's the biggest limitation today is I have a new feature. I want to put the feature in. Did I correctly wire up that feature? And I want to see that feature in a wheel that I could run somewhere. You know, doesn't have to be on PyPy, but like get to something that I can run. But, you know, like I said, we're rebuilt, you know, in CI, we're rebuilding, we're running TSC.B on meta package like 50 times, you know, and that just points to you're probably doing the same thing locally. You're probably redoing all this work all the time, and that's not important work. You know, that.
Yeah, I think it is the way it is, because GitHub Actions initially didn't really have good sharing of artifacts. It has improved greatly a lot. And the changes were made like years ago. And we can build the wheel once and share it across jobs. We cannot yet share it across actions easily. Oh no, I think actually we can do that.
You can with other actions. Yeah. You
No,
mean between workflows?
even in the like pure GitHub provided actions, there was a discussion recently that with the V4 or V5, it is feasible. It's not easy, but feasible.
Yeah. I mean, same old thing, right? Like, yes, you need to test. We need to test on Windows. There's no argument about that. It needs to also build on Windows. There's no argument about that. But building on Windows should not block testing on Windows, right? We should have the absolute fastest environment, fastest, most reproducible environment that gets us to X, whatever X is, whether that's the wheel or the documentation or whatever. So, you know, that, whoa, crazy. Yeah, this is, yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to further expand on that.
What is the next step? Like, realistically, this meeting, there's only 5 of us. We're not going to make a decision. Do you think like opening a discussion or an issue with like splitting, because we talked about many things and you brought these things up multiple times, and that some of them were mentioned in passing in other discussions. But I think it would be valuable to start prioritizing things which will reduce maintenance burden, as there is a potential funding from Jupyter Foundation. I don't know who would do that, but having this kind of directions written down might help us to even have a discussion with Jupyter Council about this.
Well, so that's what I would, I don't want to have a discussion, and I don't want to have to run this up a flagpole and have it discussed by people that don't feel this pain as they're trying to contribute stuff. So the thing that I would do is I would propose it as a, let's see here. It would probably just be a gist first, actually. You know, it'd be a single pixie.toml that I wouldn't even ship the lock file, right? Like I wouldn't even ship it, you know. I bet it would probably work. That wouldn't work long term. But you know, here's a thing that if you get clone JupyterLab, you drop this file in there, you run a thing, you get out a wheel. That's what it would have to, you would get out a wheel, a documentation website, all of your static analysis reports, you know, hopefully linked back to the actual place on disk where they are. You know, all that you get all your screenshots out and all that stuff, you know, like, oh, and then we go to Galata. Holy mackerel. I don't even know what to say about that. Is it even possible to really build them locally, to really build the screenshots? Like, can you appease CI with local screenshot tests?
Yeah, but they are different because of fonts and stuff like this.
There we go. So we got to control fonts. We got to control fonts. We got to control browsers, right? Like if that,
browsers are controlled by Playwright, but with fonts, this is amazingly funny problem because even the same font has different versions. So like on Ubuntu, they released 2024.4 and swapped half of the fonts and kept the same names.
Yeah,
That's funny.
no. We need those packaged. We need a package locked down and shipped in the box. You know, that's part of your development environment.
I tried for Jupyter Scheduler. I wanted the same set of Playwright tests to run on like in CI on macOS and on Ubuntu. And yeah, as Mike said, it's the same set of tests wouldn't work on both because of like slight visual differences.
So you should generally have it should be possible to have different snapshots for different operating systems, but then you get like duplication. Basically.
And then I can't make those snapshots locally.
Yep.
On my Windows ARM64 machine, you know, I can't make your OS X ones.
Yeah, you can't really reliably run like E2E tests locally if your environment is different from CI environment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So here's a way to put, you know, like here's a further thing to put it. Think about the documentation as the actual product, right? And the documentation contains within it the API listing, so that's a clear thread back to whatever is in there. It contains screenshots from automated tests, right? So instead of having read the docs trigger, you can change how read the docs triggers. And you can trigger it on when another webhook comes in. So you could finish your happy path screenshots and then have those screenshots be downloaded from GitHub by read the docs, for example, right? Like if you want to get to a reviewable website or something like that. So then, you know, you put your static analysis stuff in there. Does anyone care about your static analysis reports? No, but it's that thought process of what does it constitute for this to actually be a project? You know, what is the product that we actually provide? And in the best case, it's something that you can download locally and do interactive computing, right? So if you need to go to 50 internet websites on the World Wide Web to learn what that means, then that's not, you know, like you can't do that original mission of I'm sitting on a plane and I want to do some interactive computing. So that's what I'm talking to is like, what is the thing that we're trying to deliver to users, and what is the thing that what are the tools that we will give to developers in order to deliver that to users? And CI eventually is a part of it, but good Lord, you know, it's very cool to have fully automated builds that get tagged and all that. And I know PyPy wants that and all that. There has to be a fallback plan. There has to be some way that you can get a wheel out if CI is not working today. You know, like that's just insanity to have 50 different systems depending on you. You know, NPM is down. Okay, well, maybe you can't ship to NPM as NPM if NPM is down, but you can't ship to PyPy because NPM is down, or we got rate limited or something, you know. So anyhow, yeah, if I was going to propose that, and that's the thing, like, yeah, if we want to talk about TypeDoc for a while, that's cool too, you know.
Oh no, I was just I understood that I don't know what it is, but Mike already helped me like clarify what it is.
Yeah.
That's like public API reference. Because yeah, I understood that I just don't know what it does. And
Yeah.
I'm working for years with JupyterLab, so your point that it's not clear what like different parts of the build system do. Yeah, that's true for sure. It's not evident.
Yeah. I mean, let me throw some stuff up on. Oh no, my computer crashed. I can't throw it up on there. Never mind. So like TypeDoc is what it is. There is another thing that the PyDide folks, PyDo died. I think I retyped that. I typed that incorrectly about half the time. TypeDoc's really good for TypeScript. I'm not dissing on that. The PyDide people are like, forget about that. Like we need to document TypeScript stuff. But if in their specific case, they have Python code that references JavaScript and browser APIs, and they have JavaScript APIs that reference Python APIs. And we presently have no way to do that inside of our documentation system. Sphinx is just the least worst thing out there. That's all that it is. But I would say that this JupyterLab is probably constitutes like, I don't know, 50% of all the JavaScript in the entire Jupyter first-party ecosystem. I don't think that's crazy. It's got to be over half, right? Like, Notebook is like nothing now because it's just a few things that refactor pieces of JupyterLab. So this is kind of a unique problem, in a sense, to JupyterLab, and especially for the developer experience that someone would actually care about. Like on IPy widgets, if you're using widgets, you don't care about the JavaScript API. That's not the thing. You care about that Python API or the other backend API for it. So, that would be potentially a thing where either you get TypeDoc to generate objects.env, which is the Sphinx interchange format for basically just pointing to places in documentation. It's not rocket science. I don't know why they built their own thing. I don't know why they didn't use SQLite, but they did. And so you need special tools to parse it, and it's terrible. But there's tens of thousands of them out there. And so it makes things like inner Sphinx work and all that kind of stuff. So, TypeDoc also has a JSON output, but it changes. They have no commitment to maintaining that over time. So it's like right now, I think our Lumino stuff works kind of between the two, if I recall correctly. Like you can kind of link stuff in there, but I think it actually has to live in the docs somehow. Like it's not one for one you can pass over there, and it's not always accurate either, right? Like the fact that there was once a Lumino, window shade doc panel type something doesn't mean that it's necessarily there today. So there's a bunch of challenges there. So yeah, getting to where, but then Sphinx, like nobody really likes Sphinx. It's just the least worst. It's the least worst for Python. mkdocs is not fit for the purpose. I don't feel of what we're trying to do.
Since we are at the top of the hour, I just wanted to quickly get back to the agenda items. The two more PRs. One is fixing a regression in the STDR, standard error rendering performance that sounds out. Basically, STDR introduced in 4.2, and the other is just to ensure that we are not pushing docs to stable from 4.2x branch when we are backporting anything to that branch. And wanted to highlight two pull requests, which include UI changes, where I have some opinions, but they are not strong opinions. Wanted to see if you folks have any other thoughts there. So one is adding the import option for settings, basically importing from override stage JSON, and suggestion is to add a button on the toolbar. I suggested shortening the label on the button, but the author of the PR also proposed to collapse the two buttons into a drop-down. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment on the PR. And the other one is about jump to currently executing cell by clicking on the execution indicator circle. I'm not super sold on this exactly, but I don't like the alternative that I propose, which would be like a button in the drop-down, so that we could possibly fit more actions in there. I don't know what folks think. If you have opinions, please leave a comment.
Yeah, Mike, I'll provide my feedback for those and for to those others that you mentioned. Okay, we're at 10:01. I will stop the recording.